Welcome to Long Listen, where we slow down and sit with the ideas that most people rush past. This channel is about more than summaries. It's about breaking down powerful books, questioning their assumptions, and exploring what they really mean for our lives today. Everyone loves to quote deep work. It's the productivity Bible for the distracted age. Focus is the new superpower. Shallow work is the enemy. Protect your attention like it's gold. And honestly, it sounds right. It feels right. In a world buzzing every 30 seconds, the idea of sitting down and doing one thing deeply feels almost rebellious. But here's the uncomfortable question. If deep work is so powerful, why does almost nobody actually do it? Scroll through YouTube comments or Reddit threads, and you start seeing a different story. One guy wrote, "I tried the 4-hour deep work block. Lasted 12 minutes before Slack pinged me." Another asked, "How am I supposed to do deep work when my job is 90% meetings and DMs?" And you read that and think, yeah, exactly. Because it's easy to romanticize a cabin in the woods with no Wi-Fi. It's harder when your boss expects instant replies and your calendar looks like a game of Tetris. Cal Newport, in Deep Work, argues that the ability to focus without distraction is rare and valuable. He's probably right. But rarity doesn't automatically mean accessibility. What if the problem isn't that we lack discipline? What if the environment we work in is structurally hostile to depth? We don't just get distracted. We operate inside systems designed to interrupt us. Notifications aren't accidents. Meetings aren't random. Busyness is rewarded because it's visible. Deep work, on the other hand, happens in what Newport calls a kind of invisible zone. Hard to measure, easy to doubt. So before we preach focus like it's a moral virtue, maybe we should ask a more honest question. Is deep work failing us? Or are we trying to practice it inside a culture that quietly makes it impossible? So, what is deep work actually saying? At its core, it's simple. Deep work is focused, undistracted effort on something cognitively demanding. Shallow work is everything else. Emails, meetings, quick replies, small tasks that make you look busy, but don't really move the needle. Newport argues that in a knowledge economy, the people who can master hard things quickly and produce at a high level will win. On paper, it makes perfect sense. But here's where it gets interesting. Think about shallow work like scrolling TikTok or Instagram. Quick hits, fast feedback. You post something, you get likes. You reply to emails, you clear your inbox. You attend meetings, you check them off. It feels productive. It feels responsive. It even feels socially rewarding. You get tiny dopamine spikes and visible proof that you're doing something. Deep work is the opposite. It's like coding a complex feature that takes 3 days and nobody claps until it ships. It's writing a long-form piece that no one reads until it's published. It's practicing an instrument for months before you can play one song smoothly. No instant feedback, no applause, just friction. Shallow work gives you visible activity. Deep work gives you invisible growth. And here's the subtle trap. Modern workplaces optimize for visibility. Newport calls this the metric black hole. Valuable work is invisible short-term, so they reward what's easy to see. Reply speed, meeting attendance, constant availability. The person who answers Slack in 2 minutes looks engaged. The person who blocks off 3 hours to think looks suspicious. Are they ignoring us? Are they even working? So even if you want to go deep, the system nudges you back to shallow. This is why just try harder flops. Willpower's fragile motivation dips. You can't vibe your way to protected attention. Newport talks about rituals, schedules, time blocking, not because they're trendy, but because they reduce the need for constant self-control. And here's what most summaries skip. Deep work isn't a personal trait. It's a system you design. If your phone sits next to you, if notifications are on, if your calendar is chaotic, you're not weak. You're just operating inside a system optimized for distraction. Read that again. Deep work is not a personal trait. It's a system you design. Monastic mode, rhythmic blocks, fixed email windows. These are environmental defenses, not personality upgrades. The goal isn't to become some superhuman monk. The goal is to build conditions where depth becomes the default instead of the exception. Because without that structure, shallow work always wins. It's easier, faster, and crucially, rewarded right away. And in a culture addicted to immediacy, depth doesn't stand a chance unless you intentionally protect it. Now let's talk about the part that most productivity videos politely dance around: the environment. It's cute to say, just block 4 hours and focus, but what does your average workday actually look like? Slack ping, team notification, email refresh, calendar invite, open office chatter, someone tapping you on the shoulder with a quick question. One Reddit comment nailed it. My boss expects instant replies. Deep work just feels like slacking. And damn, that hits. It's not laziness, it's straight incentive design. If responsiveness is what gets rewarded, responsiveness is what people optimize for. You can't out-discipline a system that's designed to interrupt you. Most modern workplaces equate availability with productivity. If you're online, you're working. If you respond fast, you're engaged. If your calendar is packed, you're important. But deep work doesn't look impressive in real time. It looks like silence. It looks like someone is not replying. It looks like a closed door in an open office culture that worships collaboration. So even when people understand the value of focus, they hesitate. Because opting out of constant communication can feel risky. You're not just protecting your attention, you're subtly challenging the culture. And then there's the neurological side. We love to frame distraction as a character flaw. I have no discipline. My attention span is ruined. But here's a more honest framing. You are not weak. You've been trained. Every notification is a tiny bell. Ping, buzz, red badge icon, and like Pavlov's dogs, we've been trained. Ping, dopamine. Buzz, dopamine. You grab the phone on autopilot because your brain's wired for the hit. Microdoses of novelty. Microdoses of social validation. Microdoses of information. Over time, your baseline shifts. Silence starts to feel uncomfortable. Boredom feels threatening. Deep work requires you to sit in that discomfort. Without relief. That's not a minor adjustment. That's neurological retraining. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Some versions of deep work, especially the monastic approach, sound amazing in theory. Rent a cabin, disconnect completely, vanish for weeks, write your masterpiece. Beautiful, cinematic. Also, who the hell can actually do that? Let's be real. Juggling rent, student loans, a demanding job, maybe kids. Vanishing to a cabin isn't a strategy. It's pure fantasy. A lot of creators avoid saying this because they don't want to sound political or anti-privilege. But it matters. Deep isolation is easier when you already have autonomy, money, or job security. That doesn't invalidate the concept. It just means we need to stop pretending it's universally accessible in its purest form. This is the tension people feel, but rarely articulate. They read deep work, they watch a summary, they get inspired, and then Monday happens. Meetings from 9 to 3, inbox at 76 unread, Slack lighting up every 10 minutes. By 5 p.m., they're exhausted but strangely unsatisfied. Nothing substantial moved forward, just maintenance. And they blame themselves. But what if the structure is the real antagonist? So here's the turning point. If you don't have a cabin in the woods, If you're not a millionaire with full schedule control, does that mean deep work is off the table? Not exactly. It just means the romantic version isn't your entry point. The goal isn't extreme isolation. The goal is friction reduction. Maybe it's a 90-minute protected block before the inbox opens. Maybe it's turning off notifications except for 2 critical channels. Maybe it's setting expectations that you check email twice a day instead of every 5 minutes. Small boundaries move compounds, and they add up fast. The uncomfortable truth is that deep work requires some level of rebellion, not dramatic, cinematic rebellion, but quiet resistance. Not answering instantly, not filling every gap with scrolling. Letting boredom exist long enough for your brain to recalibrate. Because right now, shallow work is the default setting of modern life, and defaults are powerful. So the question isn't, are you disciplined enough? The question is, are you willing to redesign your environment, even slightly? Because attention isn't just a personal resource, it's an economic one. It's being competed for, monetized, measured. And unless you intentionally push back, the shallow will always crowd out the deep. Now we get to the part that feels almost heretical if you're a creator, a podcaster, a YouTuber, or anyone building a personal brand online. Newport's advice is blunt. Quit social media, or at least radically reduce it. Do a 30-day cleanse, log out, step away. And from a cognitive perspective, it makes sense. Social platforms are engineered for engagement loops, not depth. Infinite scroll doesn't exactly scream craftsmanship. But here's the tension nobody likes to say out loud. What if your job is social media? What if your audience lives there? What if your income depends on visibility? You can't just disappear. You can't tell the algorithm, hey, I'm pursuing meaning right now, I'll be back in 30 days. For creators, online presence isn't optional, it's infrastructure. So when Newport says quit, a lot of people hear, cool, so, quit my career? And that's where the advice feels disconnected from reality. This is where nuance matters. The real question isn't, should you quit social media? It's, what role does social media play in your life? Is it your tool, or is it your default state? There's a difference between logging on with intention and living inside the feed. And here's the uncomfortable truth for creators. A lot of us blur that line. We justify scrolling as research. We call endless engagement community building. We tell ourselves that being constantly online is part of the grind. Sometimes it is, but often, it's just shallow work wearing a professional costume. Look at what's happening right now among top creators. A ton of successful YouTubers and podcasters have cut back, from daily chaos to 1 or 2 killer uploads per week, sometimes even bi-weekly. But those pieces? Deeper, tighter, way more thoughtful. And the data shows engagement actually climbs when you stop flooding the feed. They don't quit. They treat it like a distribution channel, not their whole damn living room. Log on with a plan, drop the bomb, engage smart, then ghost. The difference is subtle but powerful. They don't let the platform dictate their attention. They dictate how they use the platform. That's the shift. Deep work for creators doesn't mean deleting Instagram and moving to a mountain. It means separating creation from consumption. Creation requires depth. Consumption is almost always shallow. If you spend 3 hours writing a strong script, recording carefully, editing intentionally, that's deep work. If you then spend 2 hours doom scrolling under the excuse of staying relevant, that's shallow. The platform isn't the enemy. Unstructured doom scrolling is. And this is why the binary quit or don't quit framing is too simplistic. Social media can be a powerful amplifier. It can connect you with collaborators, ideas, and opportunities. But it's also an attention vacuum. The trick is to convert it from an environment into a tool. Tools are picked up and put down. Environments are where you live. If you live inside the feed, depth will suffocate. If you visit it with purpose, depth can survive. For creators especially, this is crucial, because your competitive edge isn't your posting frequency. It's the quality of your thinking. Anyone can react. Anyone can repost. Anyone can comment. But not everyone can sit down for 2 uninterrupted hours and craft something original. That's where differentiation lives. That's where brand equity is built. And ironically, the more saturated and noisy the online world gets, the more your behind-the-scenes deep work becomes the real flex. So instead of asking, should I quit social media? Maybe ask, am I using social media to distribute deep work or to avoid it? That question stings a little. It's supposed to, because sometimes the hardest part isn't turning off notifications, it's admitting that we reach for them when the real work feels hard. Newport's core idea still holds. Attention is precious. But for creators, the game isn't withdrawal. It's boundary design. Post with intention. Schedule engagement windows. Create offline, publish online, and then step back. Not because the internet is evil, but because your best ideas don't come from constant exposure. They come from protected space. And in a world where everyone is always on, the rarest flex isn't virality. It's depth behind the scenes. So if the romantic, 4-hour, cabin-in-the-woods version of deep work doesn't fit your life, what does? This is where we move from theory to something usable. Not extreme, not aesthetic, just practical. Think of this as deep work adapted to real life. Jobs, Slack, content creation, bills, and all. Let's break it into 3 simple ideas you can actually remember. First, attention budget. Picture this. You wake up with a fresh attention budget every morning, like a limited wallet of focus. Not time, attention. That's your real currency in 2026. Now ask yourself, where does it go? Notifications, group chats, email refresh, random scrolling, tiny context switches that feel harmless but add up fast. By 2 p.m., you're not out of hours. You're out of mental juice. Clarity gone, just zombie mode. Here's the shift. Treat attention like money. You wouldn't spend your entire paycheck on vending machine snacks before noon. So why spend all your cognitive energy reacting to pings? Before your day starts, mentally allocate it. Maybe 40 units go to one meaningful project, 20 to meetings, 10 to admin, the rest for flexibility. The point isn't perfection, it's awareness. Because when you realize attention is finite, you stop giving it away casually, you start investing it. Second, deep work light. You don't need 4 uninterrupted hours. Most people can't realistically protect that anyway. And honestly, for many brains, 4 hours straight is overkill. Instead, aim for 90 minutes of protected focus. That's it. One solid block. No notifications, phone out of reach, clear objective. 90 solid minutes of real focus crushes 4 hours of ping-pong interruptions every time. It's long enough to enter flow, short enough to feel achievable. If you can do that once per day, 5 days a week, that's over 7 hours of true depth per week. Most people don't get that in a month. The key is lowering the barrier. When the target feels humane, you're more likely to show up consistently, and consistency compounds. Third, system defense. This is your checklist. Simple, tactical, repeatable. Not vibes, not motivation, structure. Here are 4 moves you can implement almost immediately. Email windows. Check email at set times, maybe 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. Outside those windows, it stays closed. If needed, set an auto-response that says you respond within 24 hours. Most urgent messages aren't actually urgent. Purposeful internet. Before opening a browser tab, ask, what am I here to do? Search for that thing. Do it. Close it. Wandering is where shallow work multiplies. Phone out of room, not face down, not silent, out of the room. Physical distance reduces impulsive checking dramatically. Clear end time. Set a hard stop to your workday. When you know the clock is ticking, you prioritize better. Endless availability creates endless shallow tasks. See what's going on? No quitting your job. No cabin escape. No monk-level willpower needed. It's not about heroic willpower. It's about reducing friction and closing escape hatches. Deep work is not a personality trait. It's the result of system design. When the system favors distraction, you drift. When the system favors focus, you flow. And here's the quiet truth. You don't need to be extreme. You need to be intentional. Attention budget makes you aware. Deep work, light makes it doable. System defense makes it sustainable. That's the upgrade. Not dramatic isolation, strategic boundaries. Because the goal isn't to become unreachable or antisocial. The goal is to ensure that at least part of your day is spent building something real. A skill, a product, a body of work, something that compounds. Shallow work is maintained. Deep work multiplies. And if you can consistently protect even 90 minutes a day, you're already operating differently than most of the world. So where does this leave us? Deep work isn't dead. It isn't outdated. And it definitely isn't useless. But the fantasy version, the monk in the mountains, the 4-hour silent grind while the world waits patiently, that version doesn't match most people's lives. And pretending it does only makes people feel inadequate. The real insight isn't that you need more discipline. It's that you need better boundaries. We live in an age where attention is constantly extracted. Notifications are engineered. Platforms are optimized. Busyness is rewarded. Visibility is praised. And in that environment, depth doesn't disappear because you're weak. It disappears because it's inconvenient. It's slower. It's quieter. It's harder to measure. But it's also where meaningful work lives. Skills are built there. Ideas are formed there. Confidence is built there. The irony hits hard. We bitch about burnout, feeling scattered, never getting to what matters. Yet we almost never question the system shredding our days. We accept interruption as normal. We normalize exhaustion. And then we blame ourselves for not being able to focus. Maybe it's not your attention span that's broken. Maybe it's just constantly rented out to everyone else. Deep work, at its core, isn't about productivity hacks. It's about agency. It's about deciding that at least a portion of your day belongs to you. Not to Slack, not to the algorithm, not to the inbox. You don't need to be extreme. You don't need to quit social media. You don't need a cabin. But you do need to choose. Choose your availability. Choose when you go dark. Choose what gets your attention budget. So, here's a simple experiment. This week, try one thing. Just one. Pick a 90-minute block. Treat it as sacred. Turn off notifications. Put your phone in another room. Decide in advance what you're working on. Then show up. No drama, no perfection. Just 90 protected minutes. See how it feels. See what changes. And if you try it, come back and tell me in the comments what happened. Did it feel uncomfortable? Liberating? Impossible? I genuinely want to know. If this hit home, if it got you rethinking your attention game, smash that like, hit subscribe. It really helps spread these real talks and tells me we're onto something. Share it with someone who keeps saying they just can't focus. Maybe it'll start a different kind of discussion. We don't need more hustle. We don't need more noise. We need more intentional depth in a world optimized for distraction. And maybe that's the real rebellion. Maybe the rarest skill today isn't focus. it's the courage to protect it.